Viewers, recently the Prime Minister of Pakistan has showed desire and intention to hold talks with the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and its affiliates to bring peace in the country. And this is not the first time that negotiations will be held with the TTP and its affiliates to bring peace in the country. From 2004 to 2014, about 8 main peace deals were reached, and many localized peace truces were also concluded between the government of Pakistan and TTP and other groups, but all ended in fiasco. So again, we are talking about talks with the terrorists, and situation doesn't seem to be very conducive for such talks. But if we have a review of the previous pacts or truces, we can see what were the reasons of holding talks with the terrorists and what were the causes which led to the failures of the peace deals. All the peace deals were basically, negotiated by the Pakistan Army, except for the Swat deal, which was done by the provincial government of erstwhile NWFP and now the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So we see that all the peace deals collapsed after a while and resulted in the renewal of the cycle of violence. I will just take stock of 3-4 agreements to just give an idea how they were concluded and how they failed. First is the Shakai Agreement came in the aftermath of the military operation Kalusha in South Waziristan in 2004, aimed at forcing Naik Mohammed to expel the foreign militants or get them registered. So negotiation was done, a deal was reached, but very soon Naik Mohammed reneged on all the clauses and started attacking the military and the security forces, and then he was killed in a drone attack. So I would like to say at this point that if you see that all these agreements seem to have been done to appease the adversaries, and so it was done from the position of weakness. The next is the Sarova Agreement, which was reached in February 2005. The military authorities reached an agreement with Baitullah Masood, the then chief of TTP in Sarova area of South Waziristan. The main conditions included that Taliban would be compensated, or the TTP, not to mix the Taliban with the Afghan Taliban. The TTP would be compensated for the damages incurred during military operation, and Baitullah and his coterie of militants would not be targeted by the security forces. So in return, Baitullah will not attack the security forces. And it also, there was a clause that the foreign fighters would not be sheltered by them. But again, there was violation of the deal. Both parties accused each other for this violation, and it ended, and Baitullah Masood was also killed in a drone attack. And then there was the Swat Agreement between the government and Fazlullah in 2008 to stop violence in Swat area. But very soon, within the days of concluding this agreement, the Fazlullah TTP started violating the agreement and demanded more concessions from the government, and they started targeting the security forces and other installations. So Operation Rai Haq was launched to subdue them. And then there was the most important Nizam-e-Adl agreement in 2009, again in Swat. It was done between the erstwhile NWFP, now called Khyber Pakhtunkhwa government of ANP at the time, and the Nafaz-e-Shariat Muhammadi Pakistan of Sufi Muhammad. But the Nizam-e-Adl was a big leap, and it was done against the wishes of many quarters, and it was like giving too much powers and authority to the militants. But it was done. But the militants have different ideas. They did not stop here. Immediately after this agreement, the armed militants entered into Bunair. So there was a great scare in the Western media that the militants were only probably 80 miles away from Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan, giving an impression as if the militants were about to capture the capital, which was an absurd idea. They couldn't fight with the army to reach there, but the scare was there. So ultimately, Operation Rahe-Rast was launched, and it paid dividends. Apart from these agreements, the government carried out a couple of covert and tacit deals and understanding with different militant groups to stop them from, targeting Pakistan security forces or targets inside Pakistan. One such deal was done with Hafiz Gul Bahadur and his militants. Similar pact was reached with Fakir Muhammad in Bajaur after the conclusion of military Operation Sherdil. After the conclusion of Operation Sirat-e-Mustaqim in June 2008, authorities made an unwritten agreement with Lashkar-e-Islam militants in Khyber Agency. However, the agreement was violated. So we see that all the agreements, in all these peace deals and agreements, there were violations, and both the parties accused each other. And we see that these peace deals always backfired and resulted in renewal of violence. However, some strategists still believe that negotiations should be an inalienable part of the counter-insurgency campaign. And as I said earlier in the beginning, that this is not the first time that intention has been shown to enter into negotiations with the terrorists. In 2011, the then Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani also made an attempt to have talks with the TTP, and talks actually started but soon ended in smoke. And secondly, in 2013, when Mohammad Nawaz Sharif came into power, the situation was quite bitter. At that time, terrorists were on the rampage. But he decided to give talks a chance. So he called an all-parties conference, and all the parties, I think except ANP, all the parties, even the now ruling party of PTI, agreed that talks should be given a chance before the operation. But this attempt failed, and Operation Zarbiya had to be launched. So even now we see that situation is not really conducive, because TTP and groups are feeling emboldened after the advent of Afghan Taliban, and they are upping the ante. Only yesterday they attacked Pakistani forces in Spinwarm area, and 4 FC soldiers were martyred, and a sub-inspector of levies was martyred. And this happened after the Prime Minister had made offer for talks. So they are trying to show their strength. They want to talk from the position of strength. And only day before yesterday, a renowned journalist Azhar Syed held a live Twitter session in which Ehsanullah Ehsan, the former spokesperson of TTP, also participated, and his tone and tenor showed that they are defiant. And because in response to one question, he said yes, he admitted that yes, they were justified in attacking the Nobel laureate Malala Yousafzai because she was part of the propagandists, and he called us the enemy. They were fighting with the enemy, which is us. And he also confessed that he gave information to the Indian magazine Sunday Guardian about the likelihood of attack on the New Zealand cricket team in Pakistan. And the journalist Mishra was in contact with him since long. He said that yes, he had contacts with Indian journalists because Pakistani media is trash. He said that इनकी कोई औकात नहीं है Pakistani media की. So it shows their deep connections with India, and their mood also, and their approach also at this point in time. But having said this, I will not say that talks should not be given a chance even now. Talks should be given a chance, but it should be done on solid grounds. and it should be employed with caution and care. And when UK talked with the Irish Republican Army for 20 years, for 2 decades, but you see there's no comparison between IRA and TTP. In IRA's campaign of 30 years, about 1,700 people were killed, including 1,000 security forces, 500 civilians, and about 200-300 IRA fighters. On the other side, we see that TTP, we claim that 80,000 people have died, Pakistanis have died in this TTP terrorist campaign. Even if we slash it to half, 40,000, still there's a marked difference. So it's quite complex. We can't take it so simply as it was done by the UK and IRA negotiations. There are examples when no negotiations were done, like LTTE, they were annihilated. Again in India, there were no talks with the Khalistani freedom fighters, and they have been subdued to a great extent. LTTE has been totally wiped off the face of the earth. Still, I'm not saying that no talks with these people, but we need to be very, very careful. And if we enter into talks with them, the first thing should be that it should be done according to clearly laid out a roadmap. First of all the political parties should be taken into confidence, and then the negotiations should be started according to clearly laid out conditionalities, and no concessions to the terrorist groups. Otherwise, it would be disastrous for the society and the country. And all of them, it should be a condition that they should give the list of all the militants, so that they should be on the force schedule, so that they could be monitored. After the military operation Zarbias, many of them, they fled away to Afghanistan, and we didn't know who was here and who was there and who has returned to fight again. So we will, if they want to be accepted back into the society, they give up armed struggle, they lay down their arms, and they want to be back in the fold of the society. We should know each and everybody, so that they could be properly monitored. So there can be, many other suggestions, but the idea is that we should see how the previous pacts and talks resumed and failed. We should avoid those pitfalls and start the negotiations, if need be, at a proper time from the position of strength. Thank you.